Jehovah's Witnesses say that out of all of the religions on the planet, that the God of the Bible, whom they call Jehovah, looked on the earth, and out of all the people on the earth, when Jesus took his throne in 1914, according to their chronology, he chose them. Out of all the people on the planet, he saw these Bible students sitting in the room, reading the Bible, and he said, those are my people. Those are the ones that I will use on the entire planet Earth. Out of all the religions on the planet, those are the ones that I'm going to use. And I'm going to give them the correct information, the correct interpretation of the Bible. I'm going to give them my correct name. I'm going to give them everything correctly so that they can now be my mouthpiece and represent me on earth. And that means that everything that I tell them will come true. In fact, I'm going to place this in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18 and verse 20, where I'm going to warn anyone that claims to be my representative that if they get any prophecy or information wrong, then that is an identification mark so that you can know, anyone who reads the Bible, that anyone that claims anything in my name, Jehovah, and they are found to be later incorrect, that verse, Deuteronomy 18 and verse 20, will indicate to them that those are false prophets, and not only are they false prophets, but they do not represent me on earth. And so the Jehovah's Witnesses claim that the words that come to them, or that are channeled to them specifically, that those are accurate and true because they are based on Jehovah. They claim, the Jehovah's Witnesses, that they are the exact channel. In fact, they call the leaders of the organization, who are a select, special few, that are the only ones within the organization of over 7 million people. These specific ones are the ones that are used to dispense the information to the sheep of over 7 million others. So these special ones who are at Bethel in Brooklyn, who are called the governing body or the faithful and discreet slave class, these are the ones that write their literature, that tell them what God says, and then they dispense it to the 7 million plus, and they believe them and take it as Jehovah's word. So because of this, we are going to take a look at some of the things that are claimed, since the Jehovah's Witnesses claim to be the authority on the earth. They claim to be representative of Jehovah God and thus speak truth of what it is he gives them. We're going to look at some of their claims. We're going to examine some of their claims that they have claimed over the years that Jehovah told them. And we must remember that if Jehovah told them this, since they claim to be the sole authority on the planet, if Jehovah told them this, and it is incorrect, then Jehovah too is defined by Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 20. And he would therefore be his own false prophet. Is this the case? Let's zoom in now and take a look at some of Jehovah's channeled information to the faithful and discreet slave class of Jehovah's Witnesses. And let's examine some of the things that he told them. Let me zoom in. Yeah. The Watchtower leader, the first president of the Watchtower, his name was Charles Taze Russell. And in fact, it is he who said that God chose them. He is the one who at the conception of the Jehovah's Witness organization was the one who gathered people together to examine the Bible. And therefore, he's the one that made the claim that they are now God's vessel on earth. Russell said that Jehovah told him a few things. Jehovah told Russell that in 1799, that the last days began then. Jehovah also told Russell that in 1874, Jesus came back, but invisibly. Jehovah told Russell that in 1878, that Jesus became king. And Jehovah told Russell that in 1914, that Armageddon would come and the world would end. When Russell died, he was not able to see 1914. And when he died, he was succeeded by another man that also claimed now to be the new channel of Jehovah, their God. He became the new president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Now, Rutherford really respected Russell, and he believed Russell to be the channel from Jehovah. And so many of the things that Jehovah told Russell, Rutherford now preached. He tweaked it a bit, and he said he too received messages from Jehovah. So Jehovah now tells Rutherford that in 1878, that began the last days, but it changed a little, and now it is 1914 that would begin the last days, Rutherford said. Rutherford also, in preparation of 1914, because he said that that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob would all come back to the planet in October of 1914. And therefore, every one of Jehovah's Witnesses were told to wear all white and go on the Brooklyn Bridge and await the arrival of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he even went so far to prepare a home for them. He built a home and he called it Beth Sarim. And they began to go on the bridge in 1914 to welcome them back to earth. Rutherford also said that Jehovah told them that in 1925, the end of the world would come, and that would be Armageddon. You see, he said 1914 was the last days that Jesus would take his throne. The prophets of the Old Testament would come back to the planet. And then in 1925 would be the final destination of Armageddon. Later, he said that Jesus did come back then in 1914, but he stressed that it was invisibly. Now Rutherford dies, and someone else who respected Rutherford and Russell and believed that they were God's channel to the planet and also used a lot of their teachings succeeded them. And his name was Franz. He became the new Watchtower president. And he not only incorporated these prophecies that were given to Russell and Rutherford from Jehovah, but he also said that in 1975, the world would end. In fact, there's a Watchtower article from 1906 to July 15th that really goes in depth into this prophecy. But Franz, from the stage, made it the expectation of everyone that in October 1975, the end would come. He even told the followers of the Watchtower that they should leave their jobs. People sold their houses. They forsook college because friends said, why would you go to college if the world is going out of business in 1975? People gave up their jobs. They, again, went into the full-time ministry of Jehovah's Witnesses and forsook everything that they would desire to do. If they wanted to be a doctor, to go to college, to pursue children, the Watchtower would demean them. Anyone that was having children at the time, friends would say, why? Why would you have children when Armageddon is coming in 1975? They said Jehovah gave them this information. Later on, Friends dies. And now the organization is still run by others, and new presidents end up succeeding them. And they begin to incorporate all of these other presidents' beliefs. And they still claim that Russell and Rutherford and Friends are the direct channel of God that was used then. And now it is they that continue to give the sheep the proper food at the proper time. The only thing is, eventually, these newer ones that would be president once they died began to distance themselves from Russell. They began to somewhat undermine their esteem of him, when for all of these years, this man was praised and could do no wrong. But the only thing is, he was also succeeded by Rutherford, who too is esteemed by the Watchtower even today, and who was a dispenser of the prophecies of Russell that Russell got from Jehovah God. In their new way of teaching, up until 8 years back when I was still a Jehovah's Witness, we were teaching, and I was knocking on doors, passing out magazines that highlighted the fact that the end of the world would come, and that Jesus took his throne in 1914 invisibly and was waiting to bring about the Armageddon that has been prophesied. But the Watchtower, those who were in charge, receiving the direct channel from Jehovah and information from Jehovah, they said that Jehovah highlighted the scripture that told them that this generation will not pass away before the end. And the Watchtower anointed class said that Jehovah told them that the generation that the Bible speaks of that would not pass away before the end came was the generation that was around in the year 1914. So that means that according to their writings that they wrote, inspired by Jehovah, Jehovah said in the Watchtower literature and Awake literature that anyone that was baptized and a part of the organization in 1914, that not only were they the ones going to heaven, the 144,000, but they were also the ones who would see the end. And they would be the ones that would see the destruction of this system of things when Armageddon comes. And in fact, the anointed ones said that Jehovah told them that none of them, or that generation in general, they would not die before Armageddon took place. So if we do the math, 1914 being the marking of that generation according to the anointed class of Jehovah's Witnesses that claim to have the mouthpiece of Jehovah God on earth, they are the authority. That generation of 1914, if we take this year now, 2016, and we take away the year 1914, we come up with 102. Now, this would mean that that generation who was around during 1914 when Christ took his throne, that generation would now be 102 years old or more, or just climbing 102. Now, how many people do we know that even reach the age of 102? And so, as of late, because the Watchtower, who receives the channel from Jehovah, because they've done the math also, and they realized that 1914, the people would be just too old to still be around, and Armageddon still has not come. They have now changed this prophecy that they have been declaring for decades. And they have a whole new teaching around this. And in fact, they have been successful in hiding this prophecy and all the others from those who are new to the organization. In fact, they've gotten rid of their old books, kind of like the book Fahrenheit 451 and 1984. They've gotten rid of all the old information and all the old evidence that would allow the new people or the people who were too young then to now read it and see that this prophecy was wrong. And now it would remind the reader who reads Deuteronomy 18:20 that says that anyone that says something that Jehovah says and it does not come true, they are a false prophet. And so now this scripture now enhances Rutherford's proclamations and Russell's proclamations and Franz's proclamation and even the anointed class of the governing body today. You see, the governing body has been saying this within the last 10 years, and it's wrong when you do the math. The organization for decades highlighted these dates: 1799, 1874, 1878, 1914, 1919, 1925, 1975. And guess what? It is 2016, and we are all here. In fact, a new generation has arrived on the planet, and they are just children. And so again, failed prophecy through the mouth of Jehovah to his earthly organization, they claim. And yet all of these prophecies are wrong. And so the Watchtower will tell you in your literature, so that you stay with them, they use mind control. And they quote the scripture in the book of Proverbs that says the light is getting brighter. If the light is getting brighter, they are using that terminology to say that anything that they were in error of was because the light was dark then. So by implication, if the light was darker then and it's getting brighter, that implies that they were wrong and that they were in error and that everything that they said in the darkness was incorrect. And that they, like their information from Jehovah, they are false prophets, and the information is false prophecy. So their light does not get brighter, but it stays dim. And as long as they are receiving their channel from Jehovah, as they claim, it will continue to stay dim. And if you research their older literature and you find these dates and you still remain a part of this organization, then you too bear the responsibility of teaching this information to those who will listen to you. You see, if Jehovah is your channel, if Jehovah told your leaders, the anointed governing body, Russell, Rutherford, Franz, and the others, this information, and it's been wrong, can they be the chosen religion on the planet? And will you continue to proclaim these messages to those whose doors you knock on. I'm going to post some links in the bottom of this where you can hear the president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, France, declaring 1975 as the end. He advertised it. They advertised it. And you will hear his voice saying it. But the sad thing is that Jehovah's Witnesses are told that even if you hear it, don't believe it. I advise you to read the book 1984 and also the book Fahrenheit 451. This is your organization that can declare all this and still be wrong, and you'll still grant them your allegiance.